The golden spires of Throne City gleamed under the twin suns of Prime. The morning light painted everything in shades of amber and crimson, a beautiful display that had greeted the rulers of this world for countless generations. For 3,000 years, the Empire had ruled over 47 star systems. They had conquered dozens of species. They had burned worlds and broken civilizations. They believed themselves to be the ultimate predators of the galaxy. High Sovereign stood on his observation platform, watching the morning light wash over his capital. His 4 eyes surveyed the city below with pride. Millions of his subjects moved through the streets, going about their daily routines. Military vessels patrolled the skies. Defense platforms orbited the planet like protective guardians. Nothing could threaten Prime. Nothing could challenge the Empire. At least, that is what it believed until 3 solar cycles ago. The reports had started arriving from the outer territories. Strange ships had been spotted near the frontier, ships that did not match any known design, ships that moved in ways that the Empire's understanding of physics. The first patrol fleet sent to investigate had gone silent, then a second, then a third. The intelligence division had worked frantically to identify the threat. When they finally delivered their findings, had refused to believe them. Terrans, humans, the creatures from the distant Sol system. They had heard stories about them, of course. Every spacefaring species had. Whispered tales passed between merchants and travelers in the darkest corners of space stations. Rumors that spread through the underground networks of conquered peoples. The Terrans were considered primitive by galactic standards. Their civilization was barely 2,000 years old. They had only achieved interstellar travel in the last 3 centuries. Their technology was supposed to be inferior. Their military was supposed to be insignificant. By all measures, they should have been nothing more than a minor curiosity. But the stories spoke of something else, something disturbing, something that kept veteran commanders awake at night and made conquered populations secretly hopeful. The Terrans did not fight like other species. They did not surrender when outmatched. They did not retreat when facing impossible odds. They did not break under pressure. Other species would calculate the probability of victory and withdraw when the numbers turned against them. The Terrans calculated nothing. They simply refused to accept defeat. Instead, they adapted. They learned. They evolved. They took every loss and turned it into a lesson. And then they returned, stronger than before. Always stronger. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. One of their colonial governors had decided to enslave a Terran exploration vessel that had strayed into their territory. The crew had been taken as prisoners. The ship had been dismantled for study. The governor had thought nothing of it. The Terrans were weak after all. What could they possibly do in response? Had received the first human transmission exactly 10 solar cycles after the incident. The message was simple, direct, terrifying. Return our people. You have 1 standard month. There will be no second warning. The High Council had laughed at the message. The military commanders had dismissed it as an empty threat. They had conquered species far more powerful than the Terrans. They had nothing to fear from these soft-skinned mammals. So they ignored the warning. Now stood on his platform, watching his perfect morning shatter into chaos. The alarms started without warning. Every defense system on the planet activated at once. Military channels exploded with panicked communications. Officers screamed contradictory orders. Civilians looked up at the sky in confusion. Turned his gaze upward, and his blood turned to ice. The ship materialized directly above Throne City. It did not arrive through normal space travel. It did not use a jump gate or a warp corridor. One moment the sky was clear. The next moment, the ship was simply there. It was enormous beyond comprehension. They had built massive vessels before. Their imperial battleships were considered engineering marvels, capable of destroying entire fleets single-handedly. Ships that took decades to construct and required the resources of multiple star systems. But this Terran ship made them look like children's toys. It made them look like insects compared to a mountain. The dreadnought stretched across the horizon. Its hull was black as the void between stars, covered in weapons platforms and sensor arrays. Strange symbols marked its surface, words written in the Terran language that could not read. The ship blocked out the twin suns, casting a shadow over the entire capital. His personal communicator buzzed frantically. Admiral was on the line, his voice trembling with barely contained fear. High Sovereign, the ship appeared without any warning. Our sensors did not detect its approach. We have no idea how it achieved such a feat. Our fastest vessels would take 3 standard cycles to cross the distance it covered in an instant. What are our defense options? Demanded. There was a long pause. High Sovereign, we have analyzed the ship's energy signatures. Its defensive shields are generating more power than our entire planetary grid. Our weapons would not even scratch its hull. Felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear, true primal fear. Connect me to the ship, he ordered, now. The holographic display flickered to life. A Terran face appeared on the screen. The creature looked almost fragile compared to it had only 2 eyes, not 4. Its skin was smooth and unarmored, lacking the natural scales that protected bodies. It was smaller than even the youngest warrior. By every physical measure, it should have seemed weak, helpless, harmless. But those eyes held something that made take a step backward. There was no anger in them, no hatred, no rage or fury or bloodlust. Just cold, absolute determination. The kind of determination that had driven the Terrans across the stars. The kind that had turned a fragile species into something that empires learned to fear. I am Admiral Sarah of the Terran Union Dreadnought Unconquered, the human spoke. You were given a warning. You chose to ignore it. That was a mistake. Struggled to maintain his composure. Admiral, I am High Sovereign of the Empire. Surely we can discuss this matter like civilized beings. The incident with your exploration vessel was a misunderstanding, a rogue governor acting beyond his authority. We know, Admiral replied. We investigated. We learned that your High Council reviewed the incident and approved of the governor's actions. We learned that our crew members were transferred to various labor camps across your empire. We learned that 7 of them died in captivity. Her voice remained perfectly calm. That made it worse. The ones who survived will be returned to us. That is not a request. Additionally, the governor who ordered the initial capture will be handed over to face Terran justice. The council members who approved his actions will also be surrendered. Felt rage building in his chest. You cannot make such demands. The Empire will not bow to threats from some primitive upstart species. Admiral's expression did not change. Let me explain something to you, High Sovereign. Your empire has 47 star systems. We have mapped all of them. Your combined military consists of approximately 800 warships. We have tracked each one. She paused. Right now, Terran vessels are positioned near every major population center in your territory. If I give the order, we can end your civilization within the hour. Impossible, shouted. We would have detected such a fleet. Your detection technology is based on conventional physics, explained patiently. We stopped using conventional physics decades ago. Your empire expands through conquest because that is the only strategy you understand. We expand through innovation because that is our nature. Do you see the difference? His legs felt weak. He looked at the massive dreadnought hovering over his world. He thought about his fleet, his proud, powerful fleet that suddenly seemed worthless. Why have you not simply destroyed us? He asked quietly. For the first time, something like emotion flickered across Admiral's face. Because we are not you. We do not want to rule your people. We do not want to occupy your worlds. We do not want your resources or your territory. We only want our people back. And we want to make sure you understand something very important. She leaned forward slightly. The galaxy is larger than you know. There are threats out there that make your empire look insignificant. Ancient things, sleeping things, threats that require all intelligent species to work together if we are to survive. The Terran Union has been preparing for those threats while you have been playing conqueror. We have been building weapons not for conquest but for protection, not for glory but for survival, the survival of all thinking beings. Listened in stunned silence. You can continue your current path, continued. You can reject our demands, you can try to fight us. That will end with the destruction of everything your species has built, or you can make a different choice. Return our people, accept responsibility for what you have done. Join the galactic community as equals, not as masters. She straightened. You have 1 hour to decide. I suggest you use it wisely. The transmission ended. Stood alone on his platform, staring at the Terran Dreadnought. His advisors were rushing toward him, shouting questions and recommendations. His military commanders were demanding orders. His entire government was descending into panic. But was thinking about something else. He was thinking about all the species his empire had conquered He was thinking about how they had viewed the unstoppable, invincible, a force of nature that could not be resisted. Now his people were on the other side of that equation. For 3,000 years they had built their identity around being the strongest, the most powerful, the ultimate predators. What did it mean when something stronger appeared? Closed his 4 eyes and made his decision. Contact Admiral, he said quietly. Tell her we accept her terms. The advisors erupted in protests. The military commanders threatened resignation. Council members screamed about honor and pride and the glory of the empire. Ignored them all. Our prisoners will be released immediately. The governor will be arrested within the hour. The council members who approved his actions will surrender themselves by nightfall. He opened his eyes and looked at the dreadnought once more. And prepare a diplomatic mission. We have much to learn about these Terrans, much to learn about the galaxy we thought we understood. 6 standard months later, the first ambassador arrived on Earth. She had prepared herself for what she might find. She had studied every piece of intelligence the Empire possessed about the Terrans. She had reviewed their military capabilities and their technological achievements. She expected to find a world of warriors, a planet dedicated entirely to war and conquest, a civilization that had bent all of its resources toward destruction. Instead, she found a planet of artists and scientists, farmers and teachers, dreamers and builders. Children played in parks while their parents watched with gentle smiles. Students gathered in universities to debate philosophy and discover new truths about the universe. Old people tended gardens and told stories to The Terrans had created instruments of unimaginable destruction, yes, but they had also created medicines that cured diseases thought incurable. They had developed technologies that could restore dead worlds to life. They had composed music that brought tears to the eyes of species that had never known beauty. They had built a society based on cooperation rather than domination. They had proven that strength did not require cruelty. The ambassador reported her findings back to Prime. Her words spread through the Empire like water through dry soil. The Empire that had once ruled through fear began its slow transformation into something new, something better. Generals who had spent their lives conquering began to wonder if there was another way. Scientists who had only built weapons started to dream of building something else. Citizens who had been taught to despise other species began to question everything they had been told. And above it all, the memory of that terrible day remained. The day when a Terran Dreadnought materialized over the Empire's world, and learned that they were not the apex predators of the galaxy. The day when their certainty crumbled and their future changed forever. It became a lesson taught in every school, a story told in every home, a reminder that the universe was bigger and more wonderful and more terrifying than they had ever imagined. That honor belonged to a small species from a tiny blue world, a species that refused to be broken, refused to surrender, and refused to become the monsters they had been forced to fight. A species that had looked into the darkness and chosen to carry a light instead. The Terrans had won the war without firing a single shot. They had conquered an empire through nothing more than presence and truth. That, more than anything else, was what made them truly terrifying and truly worthy of respect. In the years that followed, the Terrans built something unprecedented, an alliance of former enemies, a partnership of different worlds and different peoples. Together, they faced the threats that lurked in the darkness between the stars. Together, they protected the galaxy from horrors that neither could have faced alone. And it all began with a single ship in the sky, and a choice to be better than what came before.